The whole thing was entirely different than anything I've ever been involved in my life. I've worked several homicides in my career, and this is probably the worst one I've ever worked.
It's October 1st, 1996. Alice Ben Johns, also known as Joe Johns, accepted a ride from his friend Deborah Tedder. She had been fighting with her boyfriend, Thomas Stewart, earlier that day. Joe and Thomas were old drinking buddies. As Deborah and Joe were driving down a rural road in Pulaski County, they realized they were being followed. It was Thomas. All three of them were intoxicated. A confrontation was imminent, and it became violent. Joe pulled out a .22 caliber pistol and shot Thomas 7 times. Local law enforcement began searching for Joe Johns, but were unsuccessful. Joe would be able to evade police capture for the next 6 months. Thomas Stewart was only the first victim of Joe's killing spree. From Cullerton News and Ozarks Fox, this is Crime Traveler, a look back at criminal acts in the Ozarks and the news investigations that followed. I'm Jesse Inman. Former Pulaski County Sheriff J.T. Roberts recalls hunting Joe Johns.
I went and was with him several times trying to catch him in the woods, but I never could catch him.
On February 7th, 1997, local resident Ron Wilson returned to his home to find Joe Johns standing on the front porch with a shotgun that he had just stolen from inside. After firing once into the ceiling and once at Wilson, Johns fled with Wilson's car, 2 guns, a hunting knife, and a watch. Joe, who was known for his survival skills in the woods, wasn't seen again for 3 weeks when he forcibly entered the home of a couple and held them at gunpoint while he warmed himself by the stove. This robbery proved largely unsuccessful as Johns was only able to steal $2, a wallet, and some juice. J.T. Roberts.
I put the deputies all around the road surrounded it, and I went in the woods after him. And I followed him about 3 miles back through towards BB Highway. And he had a brother that lived just off of BB Highway there on Black Oak. Anyway, he hadn't been there, but he got away from us there, and we hunted until dark. And the next morning, I got a call that there'd been a shooting at Leonard Voil's residence. And Leonard just lives, 100 yards or so inside Camden County.
On February 28th, police found Leonard Voiles lying dead in his Camden County home. He died of a single .22 caliber gunshot wound to the head. An inventory of the home revealed that Voiles' Ford Ranger truck and his rifle were missing. The subsequent police investigation uncovered a shoe print on the property that identically matched John's right boot. Camden County Sheriff John Page joined that investigation.
Between he and I, we started working the 3-county area, which was Miller, Camden, and Pulaski, trying to locate him. But he was staying with a lot of relations, and in the meantime, he had hooked up with Beverly Gare. Beverly lived over in the west end of Pulaski County, near Hawkeye. Joe and her had dated for several years, and they were lovers. And they hooked up together, and they were involved in a lot of burglaries and a lot of stuff in the county and 3-county area. They took off together.
1 week later, law enforcement officers recovered Joe's fingerprints from Voiles' stolen truck. A day later, on March 9th, 3 miles away, police found the body of Wilma Bragg. The investigation revealed that Bragg's assailant shot her 2 times in the back of the head while she laid face down on her bed, with her hands tied behind her back. DNA testing of a cigarette butt implicated Johns in the murder, and impression analysis confirmed the rifle stolen from Voiles' home was used to kill Bragg. Newton County Sheriff Ron Dorgy in 1997.
He's desperate, he's on the run. He, in my opinion, if it's the same person, is on a crime spree, a killing spree, and he's a very cold-blooded individual, calculated, cold-blooded, cowardly killer. There's no other way to describe someone like this.
According to Sheriff Roberts, police continued to struggle because Joe was so good at living off the land.
We put a lot of legwork in it and a lot of running and checking, and he was pretty hard to find. He would live off the land, and he'd kill a turkey, and he'd eat the breast out of it raw. Anyway, he's kind of unique individual. Went barefooted, and he had calluses on his feet thicker than most shoe soles.
Now that Joe had Beverly with him, he had even more help evading the police. According to Roberts, loyalty was more important than the law to the family members of Joe and Beverly.
We kept checking at those places, and of course they wouldn't give us much information until John threatened to arrest all of them. We were going to get warrants from them for concealing an offense, hindering prosecution. That's kind of the way it went, back and forth, back and forth.
For the next few weeks, Joe and Beverly were spotted in various counties burglarizing 4 homes. Police set up search parties through the air, water, and land. Former Color 10 reporter Melissa Moon reports.
Howdy. How you doing? I need to check your trunk for you, sir. Make sure you don't have anybody hiding in there.
Troopers with the Missouri Highway Patrol are also putting in some long hours, manning roadblocks in Miller, Camden, and Pulaski counties. While the officers are working in less than ideal conditions, they're not complaining.
This is a third day into it, and you would think after a week maybe it'd get to wearing on you pretty hard, but right now we're doing okay.
The Pulaski County Sheriff says he's already scaled back the operation some and will reevaluate the situation daily. Still, most of these officers don't want to go home until Ayla Ben Johns is caught.
Those officers wouldn't have to wait much longer. On April 7th, officers of the Missouri Water Patrol encountered Joe in a cabin while searching Coal Camp Creek in Benton County.
Officer Gottman and Captain Swinberg of the Water Patrol found Beverly and Joe in a residence they'd broken into, and they were cooking something. And Joe came out with a rifle against her head, was going to kill her. And
with one arm around Beverly's neck and the other aiming a rifle at her head, John said, "I've got a hostage. I'll shoot her." As Joe makes a sudden movement to escape,
Officer Gottman shot him and cut him down.
Joe was brought to a hospital in Sedalia with a gunshot wound to the abdomen. He stayed there until he was well enough to be brought back to Pulaski County. Roberts stayed with him the entire time. On May 22nd, the state charged Joe, Ayla Ben Johns, with murder in the first degree and armed criminal action.
He was quite willing to talk to me after it was over, and he told me about killing Tommy. And he said Tommy got shot, and he said he was down on his knees. He went around and he said, it's just like shooting a dog or a deer, you wouldn't want to stuff her. So I just shot him in the head and took care of it. And so then he said, I hated Leonard Voiles, and I went over there and I shot him right through the eye. I kicked the door open and said, you got my footprint off that door. And he said, I kicked that door open, went in and shot him through the eye. I said, no, you didn't. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. I said, no, you shot him in the head. Well, I meant to shoot him in the eye. I said, okay. And I said, what about the lady down in Newton County? He said, well, they got me charged with that. That's all I'll say. And he never would talk about her. But I always wondered if maybe Beverly didn't shoot the lady down there, but maybe not. I don't know. But they charged her in Benton County with some burglaries and stuff, so she gets time over there.
Over time, Joe revealed to Roberts that he and Beverly got lost trying to find an Indian reservation, so that's why they kept coming back to the same counties. He also revealed why he did what he did.
He was kind of glad that of everything he did. He had an excuse for everything he did, and he was angry at Tommy over Debbie, and Debbie really wasn't his girlfriend. Beverly was. But anyway, they got into it that night, drinking a little beer, and they got into it, and he shot Tommy, and that's how that all went down. He was just angry. And on Leonard Voiles, he told me that Leonard had been mean to his sister. And he didn't like him. Leonard had hired him at one time to do some work, and they got into it over that. And he was angry at Leonard. Didn't like him. And Leonard was rough and talking to him. So he just went over and killed him. And he bragged, he said, well, I took him to the pen, and he said, well, they can't keep me. I said, well, they got about 30 foot of concrete and 40 foot of steel. And he said, I've got out of these before, and I'll get out again. I'll come back and see you. I said, well, come on back. We'll visit. And he said, well, I will. I'll get out one of these days. And that's the attitude he had, just carefree, and there he is. He hadn't got out yet that I know of. So
Joe was not the model prisoner either.
they shot him in the intestines. They put a colostomy bag on him, and you had to watch him because he would empty it in a cup and throw it at you.
He also revealed that Roberts was very close to catching him several times.
But he assured me later, if we did get him, that I was in a few feet of him a few times, and he was covered up in a leaf pile or in some cedars or somewhere. But he did a pretty good job describing me, so he was close enough to see me.
Joe mentioned getting a lot of help from friends and family. Roberts found out there were incestuous relationships that were involved. Roberts said that Joe had no remorse over what he had done.
Not a bit. Not one bit whatsoever. Sure never. And in his own mind, he justified everything he did. And the court finally decided that he had a mental problem, and they pulled the death warrant on him. So he was to do life without parole rather than the death penalty.
As for Beverly, she tried to build a defense case saying that Joe forced her to go along. That claim was quickly exposed as a lie, as she had left Joe many times while he was in hiding to obtain food and supplies after she witnessed Wilma Bragg's murder.
They did charge her in Benton County with burglaries and stuff, and they never did charge her with anything down in Newton County. But she was cold-hearted too, just as much as he was. It wouldn't hurt her a bit to hurt you. She would hurt you in a heartbeat.
Roberts mentioned that it's a rare thing to see this Bonnie and Clyde type of crime.
I think they were a relation too. At least her brother said they were related, and that's all I know. They were cousins or something. The whole thing was entirely different than anything I've ever been involved in my life. I've worked several homicides in my career, and this is probably the worst one I've ever worked. And it wasn't really, it's hard to say, it wasn't just the fact that they had killed some people, but it was circumstances surrounding the entire situation, the families, their habits, the things that happened, the things that were happening, and lifestyle of all of them involved in it. And I'm talking about a lot of people, lifestyle and stuff, and it was just unique and really different.
Beverly was ordered to serve the maximum sentence of 15 years for second-degree murder. She was released in prison on January 5th, 2014. Alis Ben Johns, Joe, is still serving his life sentence. Crime Traveler is a Cullerton News and Ozarks Fox podcast. For exclusive video from the Cullerton News archive related to this story and many others, go to ozarksfirst.com/Crime Traveler. Our producer is Tony Wynn. Our executive producer is Colin Lingo. Our research team is Eric Reedus and Lisa Hamblin. I'm Jesse Inman. Thank you for listening.